Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we're going to be breaking down this week's alternate event on the PGA Tour, the Corales Puntacana Championship. If you were looking for our preview of the main event, the RBC Heritage, check that out. We recorded it last night and it is on the channel feed. And if you are not subscribed with us already, if this is your first time seeing us, make sure you subscribe with us. That way you can be with us for the rest of the PGA Tour season, because we're going to be talking about all of the main events and the alternate events. But even though this is an alternate event, it's going to follow the same format that we use for all the main field events. We're going to tell you everything you need to know about this week's Corales Puntacana Championship in 30 minutes or less. We're going to break down the course itself, take a look at a lot of the key stats and who in the field is good at them, and then take a look at the board and strategize our DFS lineups and betting cards for the week. Now, if this video helps you out in any way, please hit the like button. It helps me out a ton when you guys do that. I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate it when you guys do that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right. If you're watching on YouTube, you're watching the only video evidence that you can find that this golf course even exists on YouTube. It's not somewhere that's like publicized a whole lot, but this is a course that has hosted an event on the PGA Tour for quite some time now. It is Corales Golf Club, located in the Dominican Republic, and it is very much in the same realm as a resort golf course that you would see quite often on the PGA Tour. And what I mean by that is this: all these courses that are in the Caribbean, in terms of El Cardinal, home of the Worldwide Technologies Championship, Vidanta Vallarta, home of the Mexico Open, Corales Punta Cana, home of this tournament, and Grand Reserve, home of the Puerto Rico Open. All four of those golf courses are going to have a very similar breakdown to one another. So if you watch the Mexico Open, I'm not saying that you've watched this course. There are some differences, but it's a very similar breakdown. This is very much a resort golf course, so it is designed to be played by amateurs and pros alike. So what that means is you end up with wide fairways. The rough is not penal at all, and there are not a whole lot of hazards outside of literally the ocean. It's not a very heavily bunkered course. It's not a course where the rough is going to kill you, where you can end up with a lot of tree trouble. So basically, the formula is going to be to bomb it off the tee as long as you possibly can, because this is a very long golf course. And so the longer you can hit it off the tee, the more advantage you're going to give yourself coming in. So that way you give yourself as much short shots coming into the green. And then the greens themselves are very wide, very long, very receptive, quite large. And you're going to see a very high green and regulation percentage because of that. And so, what you're going to be seeing this week is a lot of guys with a lot of really long birdie putts. The guys who can give themselves the shortest birdie putts and make the most birdie putts are the guys who are going to be able to win this week. Now, on the greens, the surface themselves is what's known as paspalum grass. It's what you see in all these tropical golf courses. It grows in this native climate. And basically, it's a very unique strain of grass that does not break a whole lot. I've played on it once in my life, and it's kind of tricky to read, but you just kind of take what you would normally think of a break for a normal Bermuda green and just kind of lessen it a little bit. And it's a very slow grass as well. So what you tend to see is guys who putt well on paspalum tend to continue to putt well on paspalum. You've also see a lot of guys who are poor putters in their career end up being really good putters on paspalum. Tony Finau and Akshay Bhatia come to mind for this one, in terms of guys who elevate their baseline on paspalum. Now, there is one bad piece of news, though, is that a lot of the courses who have paspalum grass on their greens, where the tournaments are played, we don't get shot link data from, right? So like the Puerto Rico Open, for instance, we do not have the strokes gain breakdowns. We don't get to know who gains strokes at a lot of those courses. So what you'll see me do for a lot of my breakdowns here is when I look at strokes gain for those type of courses, I'm going to be doing strokes gain total. And in fact, a lot of my breakdowns this week statistically are going to be from strokes gain total. Now, with this being an alternate field event, you are ending up with a very poor field quality. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see who plays well in weak fields, right? Because it tends to lend itself to certain types of golfers, because it tends to lend itself to certain types of golf courses as well when you see these alternate events. Now, this is a very tough event to bet. This type of event is in general very tough to bet, because you just don't have the world's best players here, right? And so it can be difficult for players to separate at courses like this and in fields like this, and you very rarely see the guy who's like clearly the best player coming in end up winning this event. Last year we did see that here at this event with Billy Horschel, but that is not something that you see very common. You look at the list of winners here, and it is a very eclectic group of names. You've got Billy Horschel to Matt Wallace to Chad Ramey to Joel Damon to Hudson Swafford in the last 5 years. So just an eclectic list there, not really favoring one type of golfer or one type of profile, but I do think that the overall general archetype that we're looking for is guys who succeed at courses like the Mexico Open, the Puerto Rico Open, and the Worldwide Technologies Championship are likely to fare well again here. So, in terms of a statistical perspective, how can we break that down? Well, in terms of our key stats this week, strokes gained approach is going to be one of the main things we look at this week, as well as driving distance and in general strokes gained off the tee, because you can be putting yourself at a big time advantage if you're able to bomb it out there accurately here this week, because the fairways are wide. And then because we're looking at a lot of courses that the comp where we don't have a whole lot of specific strokes gained breakdown that we can look at because of that lack of shot link data, I am going to look at general performance at longer golf courses and general performance at my comp courses, which are the tropical courses. We already mentioned them: El Cardinal, Grand Reserve, and Vedanta Vallarta. Now, one more thing, if your data site has the ability to look at wind, this would be a week where you can look at wind. I do think that this is a course that when it's at its toughest, it is because it is very windy. And like I said, the main hazard is the ocean, right? There is a stretch of holes on this course known as the Devil's Elbow. I don't know why they call it that. Kind of a creative, kind of cool nickname. We're in kind of, course nickname, whole nickname season here, right? And so that one is kind of a cool one, but it's basically this section that borders the ocean. And you tend to see some big numbers on that, especially when it gets windy, because guys misplaying the wind or just misplaying their ball flight and, end up taking a drop. But that's really the only hazard that you really see here. The only defense that you really see here is the wind and the ocean itself. If guys are able to literally keep the ball on dry land, they're going to end up playing pretty well here. All right, now, before we go ahead and take a look at the stats, let's go ahead and take a quick breather. All right, this statistical breakdown is going to be brought to you by the Rabbit Hole, which is the site that I prefer to use for my data. It's a tool from BetSperts Golf. It allows you to use all different kinds of filters and conditions to really weed out the micro skills that you want to look at for specific golfers on specific tournaments. And I just think it's the best at that. And it has all different kinds of options. And it really allows you to find some guys that you might not have found otherwise if you didn't have the ability to use specific filters and conditions. So we made our custom model for the week. It was quite simplistic this week. Like I said, we're looking at a lot of strokes gained total because we don't necessarily have shot link data from a lot of our crossover comp courses. So here's what we got this week. Just in this field in general, who are the best players in the field over their last 36 rounds? Top 5 in the field: Alex Smalley, Keith Mitchell, Garrick Higo, Harry Hall, and Hayden Springer. Now, if we filter that to be just approach, who are the best approach players in the field in the last 36 rounds? You've got Henrik Norlander, Jackson Suber, Chan Kim, Rico Hoey, and Hayden Springer. Now, what I also wanted to look at was over the last year and a half, so the start of 2024, who are the best players in the field in strokes gained off the tee at driver-heavy courses with a low missed fairway penalty. So in other words, at courses where it's a bomber's paradise, who is the best? Well, you've got Alex Smalley, Alejandro Tosti, Aldrich Potgieter, Michael Thorpe Bjornsson, and Cameron Champ as your top 5 in that category. Then I also want to look at strokes gained approach on long courses. I'm not somebody who is big on using proximity buckets a whole lot, but I do think that if you want to find long approach shots, look at approach shots on long golf courses, because those are where they tend to be found at, right? So the best in the field in that regard: Henrik Norlander, Keith Mitchell, Alex Smalley, John Pock, and David Skins. Now, when you look at strokes gained putting on paspalum greens, here is who we got: Aldrich Potgieter, Chan Kim, Aaron Baddeley, Frankie Sappin, and Quade Cummins. Remember, this is a paspalum week, right? Like, it's a unique green surface. We don't have strokes gained data from all the tournaments that are on paspalum, but those are guys who have shown a history of being able to do it. Now, I also wanted to look at strokes gained total on the paspalum courses. So basically, this is like our comp courses for the week, y'all. So El Cardinal, Grand Reserve, this place, and the other one, oh gosh, Vedanta. Yeah. So when we look at those comp courses, who are the best guys in the field? Alex Smalley, Chan Kim, Justin Lauer, Carson Young, Harry Hall, Grayson Sigg, Joel Damon, Henrik Norlander, Seamus Power, and Stephen Fisk is your top 10. Then I also want to look at strokes gained total in general on weak fields, because this is a very weak field, right? And so I want to know the guys that are out here who can play and win in these weak field events. Best in the field: Harry Hall, Alex Smalley, Eric Van Rooyen, Chan Kim, and Justin Lauer is your top 5. And then when you also look at long golf courses in general, who are the best? You've got Chan Kim, Keith Mitchell, Hayden Springer, Justin Lauer, and Harry Hall. Now, when you throw all that into a model, here's what it pops out. My number 1 golfer for this week on the Corales Puntacana Championship is Chan Kim. Now, that is not a total surprise to me. Like, I was expecting him to come out near the top. I wasn't necessarily expecting him to come out number 1, right? Like, I am an approach play truther. I weight approach heavily in all the models that I do, and he is one of the best approach players in the field, and he's been really good at it in recent weeks, right? Now, He's also a guy who tends to play his best in very weak fields. He's a guy who tends to play his best at long golf courses. So it's not shocking that he's going to show up here, right? When you look at his recent finishes, T5 at the Valero, which is another long golf course where he was elite on approach, very good around the green. Same deal with the Houston Open where he was T39. And then earlier this year, he played both of the past Palom events, T17 in Mexico, T16 in the Puerto Rico Open. So yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense that Chan Kim is going to show up as my number one golfer, especially because, when you look at guys who may have had similar levels of success in their recent form and in their comp courses, he kind of has the tiebreaker in the approach play, right? Now, Henrik Norlander popped up as number 2. This one's a little bit surprising to me. Basically, it's solely because of approach play, right? Like he doesn't really do a whole lot else well. You look at his profile, it's a whole lot of red going on, except for that approach category. And he has played the 2 past Palom events this year, T40 and T13 for Henrik Norlander in those 2 events. So I do think that in terms of a recent form thing, like it kind of makes sense that he's number 2. I'm not super interested in betting him or playing him in DFS though, because I understand the reason why he's popping up at number 2. And I also understand his shortcomings. They're the reason why he wouldn't be buying away number 1 or is in this field for that matter. Now, Alex Smalley is number 3. So here's one thing that's really interesting about Alex Smalley. He is like the king of like these resort tropical golf courses, right? He has played very well at them in his career. He is coming off of 3 straight missed cuts, but like none of them are bad missed cuts, right? And they're all in much better field than this one. And that was coming off of a swing where he went T8 or T10 in Mexico, T18 at the Cognizant, and T14 at the Players Classic or the Players Championship. But you look up his history here, it's really good. He's played it 3 times, T22, T2, T6, right? So you've got a guy who's coming in whose overall form for this calendar year is really good, and he's doing it in a very sustainable way. He's got a pretty green sheet in general. And he has a great history at this type of golf course and especially this specific golf course. So Alex Smalley to me makes a lot of sense showing up at number 3. Justin Lauer is number 4. I like Justin Lauer a lot this week. I love him in DFS as a play in the 8K range, and I think he's a solid outright bet to win. This is a guy who has knocked on the door and been close to winning on the PGA Tour in recent years, right? Like I had an each way on him at the American Express, which I was able to cash for quite a substantial amount of money. The Bermuda Championship, I believe he was in the final pairing in that tournament. The Worldwide Technology Championship, hey, that's one of my comp courses. He was, I believe, in the final pairing in that tournament and finished T2. And you look, he just has a really good track record at these these past Palom type events, right? The only thing that's concerning is that he has missed 3 straight cuts. But wait, when you look at the stats, there's a very clear reason why. He's lost strokes putting in 3 straight events. He is one of the best putters on planet Earth. So I am trusting that he is going to flip that around at a golf course that he's clearly very comfortable with. He's played this place 3 times, a T15, a miscut, and a T4. So Justin Lauer, when you add all that together, I think he's due for some putting regression. I think getting back to kind of a weaker field alternate event will be good for him. And I think this is the type of place where he could win because he could just putt the lights out with the putter. Hayden Springer is number 5 in my model this week. He's another guy that I like a ton. I've mentioned him here on the podcast before. Look, you just play Hayden Springer at long golf courses. Like in terms of course archetype, he's been very, very good at long and very long golf courses in his career. And this one does classify as very long. And you look at how he's playing recently, and that backs it up. He was T15 at the Houston Open, green in every single category. He's played both the past Palom events so far this year. Was T45 in Mexico, T34 in the Puerto Rico Open. Has he played this event? He did miss the cut here last year, but he must have missed it on the number because it was not a very low strokes gain number. But to me, when you look at his overall profile, I'm willing to overlook that one missed cut and trust that he is a guy that you just roll out on long course. You don't have to do a whole lot of thought about it. So Harry Hall is kind of like the more expensive version of Justin Lauer, and he comes in at number 6 in my model. He's another guy that is just an elite short game player. Who can put the lights out on any given week. And he's also really leveled up his approach play in the last calendar year. That's kind of why he is shooting up and why he's one of the more high-priced players in this event. He's also shown the ability that he can win this type of event because he won the ISCO Championship last year, which was an alternate field event, I believe, while the Scottish Open was going on, but don't quote me on that. So, you like to get a guy with winning pedigree. He's played here once and he was T13. Not a bad look at Harry Hall. And then you look at 7, 8, 9, and 10. You got some guys that are cheaper in DFS that I think have a ton of upside this week. Stephen Fisk is number 7. He's another one of these 8K guys that I like a lot, because when you look at his overall profile, he's another guy like Hayden Springer that is at his best at long golf courses, and he's at his best in weak fields as well, which kind of lines up well here with this event. He's played both the past Palom events this year, was T4 and T17 in both of them. At the Valero Texas Open, he played it, was T33, was great in the ball striking categories, but lost a little bit around the green and with the putter, or else it would have been better. But it's an entirely different type of environment this week in the short game. But the ball striking is going to be there. He's long off the tee. He checks off a lot of boxes. I really like Stephen Fisk this week. Joel Damon has won this event before. If you're a ball striking truther, Joel Damon is going to, kind of fly near the top of your list no matter what. Andrew Putnam is number 9. He tends to always show up on my models because he is a guy that is just such a great approach player, and he can back it up with around the green play and putting as well. He's cost me some money this year, though, so I don't know if I'm going to go back to him here or not. And then Joseph Bramlett was number 10 with Kevin Roy coming in number 11. When you think about the course archetype, both of those guys are two guys that I like at this archetype of course, even though neither of them have particularly great history here. Both of them have one solid finish here from the looks of it. I'm not necessarily all in on them, but I understand why they came in near the top of my model. Now, before we get started with the full breakdown of the board, I do want to mention that if you like this model top 10, this is something that I kind of tinker with all week long. And every Wednesday, I post an article for every main field and alternate field event where I have my model top 10, as well as my core plays for both DraftKings and FanDuel for every event, as well as a full write-up why they are my core plays. So if you are interested in that, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/MikesMoneyPicks. If you want more information from me, feel free to follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks to keep up with all updates for the show, as well as reach out to me if you have any questions. And then I'm also in the Fantasy Corner Discord. The link is in the description on YouTube, as well as the audio feed. Fantasy Corner Discord is a community of a lot of people who play DFS for a lot of different sports, and one of them is golf, but we got everything else covered as well. So if you're just looking for people to talk DFS with, bounce lineup ideas off of, talk strategy, or just sweat it out together and have fun, complaining about what went right and what went wrong, it's a great place to go, and I cannot recommend it enough. All right, let's take a quick breather, and then we're going to take a look at the whole board. All right, so we've kind of already alluded to this week, but I'm not a big fan of betting from the top of the board here this week. I just think that this is the type of event that kind of lends itself to kind of a lesser known player ended up winning, not somebody who's just like the super obvious name. So I don't think that this is necessarily the week to go out and bet on Keith Mitchell or Alex Smalley to win the tournament. Now, DFS is a different story, though. I kind of understand the merits of both approaches this week, right? So method of approach number 1 would be to say, hey, Keith Mitchell, Alex Smalley, Harry Hall, Chan Kim, those Ryan Fox, even those top 5 names near the top of the board are a lot better than the other guys in the field, and you can go try to get multiple ones of them, because the guys, in kind of the upper 6, low 7K range aren't significantly worse than the guys in the upper 7K, 8K range, right? That would be model number 1 of thinking. It would be to go stars and scrubs approach in DFS like that. Model number 2 of thinking, which is what I'm more leaning towards this week, would be to say, hey, all these guys in this field are in this field for a reason. None of them individually is all that better than one another. So why not let's go with a balanced build, and let's avoid the very bottom of the field, because the very bottom of the field gets very bad. And I think that is going to be the approach that I'm going to take this week. We already went over with the model. I do believe my favorite play at the top is going to be Chan Kim. He's probably going to be my highest owned player. But then I'm really going to just pepper that 8K range. I love Springer. I love Damon. I love Lauer. I love Fisk. And then there's a few more guys that I'm going to have interest in as well, right? Now, also, I'm not going to full fade Keith Mitchell, but Keith Mitchell's a guy that it seems like no matter what type of event you put him in, no matter what field you put him in, what type of course you put him in, he's going to do the same thing he always does. He's going to strike the living crap out of the ball. He is going to play pretty well, and he's not going to win. That just seems to be the case with Keith Mitchell, right? Now, granted, the counter argument would be he's playing well enough that, if you remove the very top of the field out of all these events, would he be beating the rest of the scrubs? Probably so, right? And so I do think that there is merit to playing him. There is merit to betting him. But, I don't know. It's just hard to see him ever crossing the finish line just because he never does so, right? Now, Ryan Fox is a guy that did not show up near the top of my model, but I am interested in, because he is a guy who just drives the crap out of the ball. He has never played this event, doesn't have extensive history on paspalum, but he is one of these guys that came up from the DP World Tour, so he's experienced worldwide. He's played in all different types of courses, all different types of environments. He's great in the wind, and he's a guy that's going to get out there with his driver, and that's a big-time advantage this week. So I don't mind the idea of playing Ryan Fox, but I also understand why he didn't show up on my model. Rico Hoey, I was expecting to show up higher on the model than he did, because he's another guy kind of like Keith Mitchell. He's kind of like the light version of Keith Mitchell, where he's just going to strike the crap out of the ball, and it's probably going to be a good finish. You know, he's played 6 times in the last 2 months. He's missed 2 cuts, but every other finish has been top or T33 or better. Played here last year and missed T33. So I kind of understand the merits of Rico Hoey. I think he's going to be super popular in DFS. That might be chalk that I'm willing to fade, but it might also end up biting me at the end because he is such a good ball striker. He could absolutely just win this tournament on his ball striking alone. Alejandro Tosti is another guy that's interesting to me. So he was really good at Mexico. He was really good at Houston. He's just good at these driver heavy, hit the ball as far as you can, and hopefully you don't put it in the middle of the ocean type of courses. And this is one of those courses. So I could absolutely see it going well for Tosti. He is from Argentina, so I don't know what part of Argentina he's from. I'm not that big of versed on Alejandro Tosti, but he might be used to playing in tropical climates. I know Argentina is a big country. It's got the Andes Mountains. It's got a wide variety of climates. It goes almost all the way to the South Pole. But if he's from northern Argentina, he's probably used to playing in South America, playing in some tropical climates. So maybe there's something there. Emiliano Grillo is here. So Grillo is probably one of the most accomplished PGA Tour players that is here at this tournament. And he hasn't been great this year, or looking back to last year. The end of last season and the start of this season was really bad, but he's starting to find it again. Last 3 events, T22, T47, T18. And what's good is that he's finally flipped the approach play around, right? Like Grillo's problem, in his career, has always been a poor putter, but he's always been a good approach player. And he lost that approach play at the end of last season and the start of this season. Now he's found the approach play again, and he's actually been putting really well. So I actually kind of understand playing Grillo here, and just going with, hey, he's just the most accomplished player here. Why would I not play Emiliano Grillo at 8,600? That's just a very reasonable price tag for that guy. Garrick Higo is also kind of like the younger version of Ryan Fox. He's a guy that's going to hit the crap out of his driver. He's won in all different types of climates. He won at Congaree on the PGA Tour, and he won in the Canary Islands in a DP World Tour event. So he's used to playing in tropical climates and courses like this. He did play here last year and missed the cut. He's just a super volatile, wide range of outcomes play that I tend to play him in DFS because he's going to be low owned and there's a chance he can win you the event. I feel the same way about Aldrich Potgieter. He's kind of like Alejandro Tosti, where at courses where he just gets to whale away with driver, he's going to be really good at. He almost won in Mexico. He lost the playoff to Brian Campbell. And so if Mexico is the biggest comp course, then it makes sense that Aldrich Potgieter would have himself a good week here this week. Now, looking in the 7K range, we've got Chad Ramey, who is a former winner here at 7,700, coming in really good form because he was 5th at the Valero Texas Open. I don't mind the idea of getting a Chad Ramey. Mac Meisner is 7,800. If you're just basing this off of approach play, he's probably a guy that you want to play. He's one of the best approach players in the field. If you look at his track record, he is kind of a tough guy to predict. He's got a lot of different ups and downs in terms of what he has done well and what he has not done well. There's no real clear trends, right? What he does do well, though, is approach play. And that's been really good in the last 3 events. He continues to just rattle off made cuts. And now that he's finally in an event that's a weaker field, maybe this will be an opportunity for him to really, turn in a good finish, because that approach play is really going to be able to separate against these guys who are not as skilled in terms of their approach play. I like the idea of getting to Michael Thorbjornsen. He's another guy, kind of put him in the Potgieter Tosti category. Young guy, he's going to hit the crap out of the ball. Great driver of the golf ball. I would have preferred to see some course history. He really hasn't played a whole lot of the paspalum events on the PGA Tour, though. So definitely a volatile play there, but don't mind the idea of getting to him because the kid's definitely talented. Nate Lashley has a win at one of the paspalum courses. I believe it's Puerto Rico. He has a 4th here as well as a T15 here. Form is kind of rounding into form coming into this event. His last 2 starts have been a 12th and a 27th. Let's see why they were so good. So at those 2 events, he really found his approach play, and really he was just good in every category except for off the tee. So you know what? That's kind of some good signs right there. And a guy who normally plays paspalum courses quite well. You know what? I could see myself playing Nate Lashley in some DFS here this week. I kind of think that that's not a bad look. Now, heading further down the board, Carson Young is a really good paspalum player. He's got good finishes piled up at Puerto Rico and Mexico. This place, not so much. T38 in a missed cut here last year, but I kind of believe that that form is going to come back just because like these courses are so similar that if you're good at one of them, I think you're eventually going to play well at another one. Lonto Griffin is a guy that I like to play at long golf courses, tends to play well at them. He's T36 here last year. Not a bad look. It's a guy that's won on the PGA Tour. After that, like it gets really, really hard to pick some of these lower guys this week. If you're just an approach play truther like I am, Sungil No, Jackson Suber, in the 7K price tag even, are not bad options. Neither of them have particularly great history here, but hey, if you're an approach play truther, those are two guys that are going to hit the approach really well. Rafael Campos is a guy that I want to talk about, though. So Rafael Campos is from Puerto Rico. I believe he has won the Puerto Rico Open before, if I'm not mistaken. What has happened to Rafael Campos this year is that he has ended up, because he won the Bermuda Championship last year, he has ended up in all of these elevated events, all these elite field events, and he's gotten the crap kicked out of him. There's no way around saying that, right? But he's from Puerto Rico. At this event, he has T14, T38, T28, T2. Great history here at this event, right? You look at Puerto Rico, T18, T48, T3. Maybe it was another event that he won. Puerto Rico. He did not win a Mexico Open, but he's made the cut there both times he played. Gosh, I'm blanking on what event he's won. I know he's won somewhere other than the Bermuda Championship. Maybe I have that wrong. Let me see if I can do a quick filter here. No, not letting me do that. Okay. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have to look that up. But he's a guy who really plays well in the Caribbean, in Latin America. And I just have faith in going him. $6,900, like, yeah, he's in bad form because he's playing in totally different events than this one, right? And now that he's back in this type of format, this type of field, this type of course, I think that this is a really good spot for Rafael Campos. Kevin Tway is another guy like Lonto Griffin that I really like at long golf courses. And his finishes here kind of back that up. He plays here almost every time he can. T38 2 years ago, third last year. If you remember Kevin Tway last year, he kind of got hot this time of year last year and ended up playing his way into the Wells Fargo as a member of the Aon Swing 10 or whatever they call it. So it would not shock me to see him get back to familiar territory, familiar courses, and kind of heat up again and play well here this week, even though he doesn't have much recent form to speak of at all. The last guy that I am going to talk about is going to be John Pock at $6,700. He is from the University of Texas. Hey, not like they've never produced any good golfers, right? But he's a guy who is really rounding into the form, more specifically with his approach play, right? He's gained strokes on approach in 5 straight events, one of which was a T17 in Mexico. Now, he did miss the cut at Puerto Rico, so I got to ding him a little bit for that. But he's made 3 straight cuts since then. His approach play was on point in all of them. And I think this is just a guy that you get to this type of event, this type of golf course, that approach play is going to be able to really play well. And I think this is a really good spot for him. But all right, y'all, that is our full breakdown of the Corales Puntacana Championship. We took a look at the course itself. We took a look at the stats, and we took a look at the board. Told you about some guys that we like and don't like for this week. If that video or if that information helps you out at all, please hit the like button on YouTube. It really does help me out a ton when you guys do that. Please rate and review if you're listening on audio. Again, it just helps me out so much. Like, I did not know until I started making content how much those likes, those rating and reviews matter. It's entirely free to do, takes very minimal effort. It helps me out a ton, and I just really do appreciate when you guys take the time to do that. I cannot stress that enough. If you've not already, make sure you're subscribed to the video. That way you can be with us for the rest of the PGA Tour season. Go check out our preview for the RBC Heritage on the channel feed, and we will be back next week to cover the Zurich Classic as well. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Best of luck to you guys with your DFS lineups and betting cards at the Corales Puntacana Championship. Thank you guys for watching and listening at this point, and I will see you guys next time.